Good morning, everyone. So nice to see all of you this morning. The ninth commandment. Can't believe we've been on this study for 9 weeks already. It just seems like we just started yesterday. Telling the truth. Wow. Might this possibly be the commandment that we violate the most? We're going to take a look at that this morning because telling the truth is such a huge thing. There are so many facets to being honest. Yet Jesus says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. Truth must be a part of our being. So the ninth commandment is about honoring truth, speaking the truth, knowing the truth, living in the truth. And what is truth? Today, many people think that truth is just your perspective. However you see it, that's what perspective that you have. That is the truth for you. And so the truth can be many different things. But God is very specific about what the truth is, and He has a lot to say on how we use the one thing that He gave us to use for praising Him, we also use for cursing out of the same mouth. In fact, James is all about writing how the tongue can be full of evil and all the trouble that it brings us and those around us. But I wanted to remind us before we get started about the bigger picture, because I have just been consumed with what God was trying to establish as He led Israel out of Egypt. He was wanting to establish ambassadors, a holy nation, a nation of priests, those that would know His ways and be willing to live His ways and be an example of what it is to love the Lord and love their neighbor. God was raising up a people. Imagine a society where no one tells the truth. What kind of trust can exist? How can we socialize together, a society, get along together, if no one is willing to tell the truth? If you can never, ever trust what comes out of someone's mouth. If you can't trust someone to respect your property. If you can't trust someone to respect your household. God wanted a group of people that would honor Him in every way and honor each other as He laid this plumb line that delves into every area of life. There is not one thing that is not dealt with when it comes to character building and how we are to love and relate to one another. So let's look at the ninth commandment, Exodus chapter 20, verse 16. You shall not give false testimony against your neighbor. Now, from just reading that, we could think that this is only talking about when you go to court. When you go and when you're in a legal situation and you're called to give a testimony before a judge or jury, that you are not to lie. You're not to give false testimony. But it's so far beyond that. However, we're going to look at that first because God was so serious about His golden plumb line that those that chose to desecrate it were to be dealt with. And we want to, let's go to Deuteronomy 13. Let's look at that first. And we read this a while back, but I want to keep bringing this to mind. That when there was a serious matter to be dealt with, And there was an accusation coming. Look at we'll start at 14. We'll just back up to 13. No, we'll back up to 12, make more sense. If you hear it said about one of the towns the Lord your God is giving you to live in, that wicked men have risen among you and have led people of their town astray, saying, let us go and worship other gods, then you must, and this is the part I want you to look at, you must inquire, you must probe, you must investigate it thoroughly, and if it is true and it is proved, then you deal with it. It's not just because one person says it, or not even because 2 people or 3 people say it. Even though you have the witnesses needed for the certain thing, God requires an inquiry, a probing, an investigation thoroughly, and then if it's proved, then they were to deal with the problem. Go over just a few chapters to chapter 17, Deuteronomy 17. Again, Moses writes, verse 4, if this has been brought to your attention, you must investigate it thoroughly, and if it is true and has been proved that this detestable thing has been done in Israel, take the man or woman who has done this evil deed to your city gate and stone that person to death. On the testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses, a man shall be put to death, but no one shall be put to death on the testimony of only 1 witness. The hands of the witnesses must be the first in putting him to death, and then the hands of all the people. You must purge the evil from among you. Justice must be carried out swiftly. Why? Because if the guilty are left unpunished, then evil becomes a safe thing to do. When people get away with doing something, guess what? Someone else wants to get away with being a lawbreaker as well. That's why God says, purge the evil from among you. And it required honest witnesses. In fact, to keep us from lodging accusations that weren't true, God says, you said that you saw this, take the rock, you be the first one to throw it. So that was pretty serious. To bring that kind of an accusation that required death. There was one who received a false testimony beyond that we can possibly conceive. And we have to start there with a mock trial where false testimony was given. Let's go to the book of Mark, chapter 14. Let's start reading at verse 53. They took Jesus to the high priest, and all the chief priests, all the elders, all the teachers of the law came together. They clearly understand the law given to Moses, that only after something's been inquired, something's been proven, investigated thoroughly on the basis of 2 or 3 witnesses, they know, and so they are following through with the law given them. Verse 54. Peter followed him at a distance right into the courtyard of the high priest. There he sat with the guards and warmed himself at the fire. The chief priests and the whole Sanhedrin were looking for evidence against Jesus so that they could put him to death, but they did not find any. Many testified falsely against him, but their statements did not agree. Some stood up and gave this false testimony against him. We heard him say, I will destroy this man-made temple in 3 days and will build another not made by men. Yet even their testimony did not agree. They made that up because in that day, places of worship, destroying places of worship was a capital offense. So if they could at least put that out there, they might could get him on that. But even their lies, they didn't even come together to get their lies together so they could all give the same story. Then Then the high priest stood up before them and asked, Jesus, are you not going to answer? What is this testimony that these men are bringing against you? But Jesus remained silent and gave no answer. Again, see, the high priest is not getting what he wants. There's a mock trial. There's no evidence. It's a very shaky case at best. He needs to find something, some way, because he is stirred beyond to get rid of Jesus. So he says, are you the Christ, the Son, the Blessed One? I am, said Jesus. And you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of the Mighty One and coming on the clouds of heaven. The high priest tore his clothes. Why do we need any more witnesses, he asked. You have heard the blasphemy. What do you think? Drama always fits when you don't have the truth. A big scene, a big tearing of your clothes scene, that'll do. And at the tearing of the clothes from the high priest, which denotes horrible behavior, blasphemy, then they all condemned him as worthy of death. Then some began to spit at him. They blindfolded him, struck him with their fists, and said, prophesy. And the guards took him and beat him. I couldn't help, as I was reading this, how many times we've given a false testimony, and we are these people. We are these people giving a false testimony. We are the reason. We know we are the reason. Our sin is the reason why our Creator is going through this. And we wouldn't have been in any different place. And how horrifying it is for us to realize that the law that the Creator gave, that law gets turned around and gets used against him. Isn't it amazing? It's beyond me that the Creator of every living thing would allow himself to be part of a mock trial, totally made up testimony to kill the Son of God. Yet, how many times do we crush Jesus with the words that come out of our mouths? You see, lying is a heart problem. Go back a couple of books to Matthew, or actually one book to Matthew, chapter 15. Jesus is very clear that our mouths are a meter of our hearts. Our mouth reveals who we are. When we spout rot, when we have rot coming out of our mouths, we are indicating where the rot is coming from. One thing I am totally sure about, without any doubt, is that I am not fit to be taken to heaven. The Lord cannot take me to heaven in this state. For what Jesus says here is me. For out of the overflow of the heart, the mouth speaks. No matter how much you and I want and desire, what lives within us, called a carnal heart, will trump us every now and again in our decision. It just happens. For out of the overflow, the mouth will speak, and it will speak rotten things, horrible, detestable things. And I can tell you that when stuff is coming out of your mouth in a rage, in anger, in bitterness, you might think that you're getting at whoever you're talking to, but really it's just a picture of what's going on in your heart, which is a horrible picture. We need to rein ourselves in and watch our words. We need to watch what comes out of our mouths. People who claim to be ambassadors for the Lord Jesus Christ, who want to learn to love God and love our neighbor as ourselves, we must become quick to listen and slow to speak, slow to become angry. Let's read this, verse 18. The things that come out of the mouth come from the heart, and these make a man unclean. For out of the heart come evil thoughts, murder, adultery, sexual immorality, theft, false testimony, and slander. And Jesus puts false testimony and slander right next to each other, because false testimony and slander go hand in hand. Telling the truth is huge to God. And why you and I need to understand what slander is, because slander belongs to the father of lies. Slander started in heaven. Remember, Lucifer's name was changed to the accuser. He was falsely accusing God of being anything but holy. That's why his name was changed. That's what Lucifer means, the accuser. He slandered God's name. Satan is the father of lies. He is the slanderer. When you and I act that way, we are standing on the wrong side. We are standing with the wrong father. He is the father of lies. Slander is a lie that we invent to cause harm. That's what the definition for slander is. A lie that is intended to cause harm. And anytime we have behavior that is intended to cause harm, we are predators. We become predators. And in the end, there will be two camps. Those that love the Lord with all their heart, soul, mind, and strength, and their neighbor as themselves, and those that are consumed with self, that belong to the father of lies, who have no idea what truth is or anything close to the truth. And we will become predators because we will become corrupt and violent. Remember what the book of Revelation predicts, that people will be killed and those killing them think they will be doing a service to God. Talk about deception. Grand deception is coming. Harming someone's name to slander someone, there are so many people that have been slandered in ways that they can never recover from. I think about parents that have been accused of sexually abusing their children, all just because of a bad divorce. And that never leaves that parent. It follows them forever. It'd be better for them to be dead and out of their misery than to live their whole lives in the misery of a lie that they have to live under. Slander is a grievous thing, and God sees it as very serious because we know what names mean to God. They mean something. So harming someone's name is just right above murder. However, false testimony and slander have a sister. It's called gossip. Let's go to the book of Proverbs. Proverbs chapter 18. And so we might be thinking, well, I've never slandered anybody. My lies are small. Let's go to, hold on a second, 18. That's the one I wanted. Oh, it's okay, we can start there. Verse 8. The words of a gossip are like choice morsels, They go down to a man's innermost parts. What do you think of when you think of choice morsels? Delicious, yummy. Something that you would enjoy having. That is the carnal heart. We love juicy little tidbits, morsels. Not a meal, little morsels here and there that go down into the innermost parts. They might seem like choice morsels and that they're delicious, but once they go down, they become part of our being. They wreck our heart. They become part of who we are. And that is what the overflow of our heart winds up. Gossip is repeating a story to discredit someone. Gossip is repeating a story to discredit someone. If you repeat something fantastic about someone, oh, let me tell you this great thing about Nietzsche. You're not going to believe how wonderful. Would anybody say you were gossiping? No, of course not. So gossiping is never telling something good about someone. It's about spreading to discredit someone. And most of the time, we don't even know what we're saying is true. If it's true, who cares? It's what I think is true, what I was told to be true. How many times have we repeated something or said something when we didn't really even know if it was true? We just thought it might be true. Yeah, absolutely. Let me paint you a little story just to kind of put us in the mode of where we're going this morning. Let's just say this morning, Grammy's at home sick, and after church I check my phone and she leaves me a message saying, the doctor called in a prescription for me, can you stop and pick it up for me? So I leave church and I go to get Grammy's medicine, and one of you all leaves like 10 minutes after me. You know, going home that way you pass by the CVS. So when you're passing by the CVS, you see Letty walking out of the CVS with a big pile of balloons and a couple bags, and you're going, wow. So she was going to get medicine. That's interesting. Look at the pastor shopping on the Sabbath. Wow, look at that. She didn't think anybody would catch her. So, loving these choice little morsels, you can't wait to get on the phone and say, you're not going to believe what I saw Letty doing. Now, when you see something and you think you know what's going on, might you ought to process and find out what you think might not be what it is? How many times have we come to find out later that what we thought was not even what was going on? So it's just killing you that Letty was coming out of the CVS with balloons and bags of stuff on the Sabbath. You just can't, how can I find out so that I can spread true stories instead of just stories? So that I'll call Letty and find out if her mom's okay. That's what I'll do. So you call Letty and you say, hey, I just wanted to check on you. Sorry that you didn't get a chance to eat lunch with us. Is your mom okay? Yeah, mom's fine. I stopped by to pick up the medicine. It took me a little bit longer because the drive-thru was not working, so the window wouldn't open, so I had to drive and go in the store. And then, lo and behold, I'm trying to pay for the medicine, this little elderly woman was buying some things and said, ma'am, can you please help me carry these balloons to my car? I just think it's so windy. I don't think I can get the balloons in the car by myself. And yes, let me hold everything here. You go ahead and open the door to the car, and I'll put everything in the car for you. And now you're feeling about that big. Now you have no juicy story. And now you're feeling really bad for letting your mind go there. But how many dozens of times have we done just that? We think that we know all and see all, and we just make an assumption, and we just go with it, and we're ready just to tell what we see. And the people affected most by things is those with a personality trait called a babbling brook. And I'm going to tell you that because it's really important for us to understand. We have a lot of them in this congregation. Babbling brooks, it's just a personality trait. It's not me calling anybody names. If you study personality traits, you'll find out that in the communication department, there are babbling brooks that love to talk, and there are dead seas that hardly ever talk. And really, they're extremes. We all need to kind of be right here. Not either extreme is not good. But babbling brooks, of us that love to talk, love to tell stories. We just love to tell stories, and we love to tell all about the story too. And so those with those personality traits really have to watch the talk. We're going to find out the Bible even tells us. Proverbs 10:19. If you've never spent a lot of time in Proverbs, we will today. Proverbs 10, verse 19. When words are many, sin is not absent, but he who holds his tongue is wise. I love the NLT. Too much talk leads to sin. Be sensible and keep your mouth shut. Does that not just get right to it? Sometimes the NLT just tells it like it needs to be said. Heidi, what was the sign that we saw on vacation one time? What was it? Never miss an opportunity to shut up. We should have bought that sign. Yes. Too much talk, ongoing, and because we're not listening. We can all talk. We're not very good listeners. We don't listen like we should. And what does gossiping say about us? When I am telling a story, repeating something to squash someone, and we're all guilty. There's nobody in this room that can say I'm not guilty of that. It says, I am hateful, I am hurtful, I cannot be trusted. So it says about me. Excuse me. Go to Proverbs 20. Verse 19. A gossip betrays a confidence, so avoid a man who talks too much. Yeah. How can we have a relationship with people if we can't trust them? How can we reveal things about ourselves to someone and not know if it's going to continue to circulate? How can we have a relationship? Yet how do we reveal information and deal with problems without passing along information? That's an important thing to do. Sometimes in dealing with problems, it becomes necessary to share information with someone else. So let me tell you the one most important thing that you need to know. Number one, will that person sharpen you? Proverbs 27. Verse 17. As iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. When we need to share information with someone that might be hurtful because we're discussing our own problem, we need to share it only with someone that will be a sharpening influence. That means not someone who's going to take up the problem along with you and it's going to also damage them because they can't handle it. It means you pick someone that's going to say, okay, this needs to be worked out. This needs to be made right. We need to pray about it. We need to take it to the Lord. You've got to get past this. If you're not looking for that, then you're just looking to be a troublemaker.